The world tonight stands on the edge of a new and far more dangerous chapter. A chapter that many experts feared, but very few expected to arrive this quickly. Without any loud announcement, without any press conference, and without any official confirmation, the United States has quietly delivered a set of secret new weapons to Ukraine. Weapons so advanced, so precise, and so unpredictable that even some NATO officials were caught off guard. And as soon as these weapons were deployed, Russia released a warning, one so serious, so sharp, and so direct that it sent shockwaves through European capitals, Washington, and every major intelligence agency around the world. Before we dive into this dramatic shift, if you want to stay updated on the real hidden side of global events, then make sure to like this video, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Your support allows us to bring you these deep, detailed breakdowns that the mainstream media never fully explains. Now, back to the situation that has everyone on edge. For the past several months, the United States have been sending Ukraine mostly conventional supplies, basic ammunition, drones, air defense missiles, and support equipment. But this time, something different happened. A shipment arrived without the usual declarations, without any journalist leaks, without even congressional debate. It carried only a cold, short label on its manifest: special capabilities, classified. Those 3 words alone were enough to make analysts nervous. And once the nature of these systems became clear, a new wave of tension swept through every command center studying this war. Inside this shipment were 3 major systems: quiet, lethal, and designed to change the battlefield in ways Russia was not prepared for. The first was a stealth drone referred to in military circles as the Silent Hawk. This drone flies extremely low, hugging the terrain so closely that most radar systems don't even realize something passed by. It can travel enormous distances, strike targets from 100 kilometers away, and even change its target mid-flight if a new threat emerges. In simple words, it is a ghost one Russia cannot easily see, track, or stop. The second capability was a high-grade electronic warfare device, an upgraded system known as the Spectre. This tool has the power to shut down Russian drones in the air, block their communication on the ground, and interfere with missile guidance systems across an entire zone. If deployed effectively, it could blind a whole section of the Russian front line, leaving their troops disconnected, confused, and vulnerable. And the third element was something Ukraine desperately needed: a new generation of smart artillery. Rounds. These shells don't just fly like regular ammunition, they think. They can change direction midair, lock onto moving positions, curve around terrain, and hit targets hidden behind reinforced structures. This gives Ukraine something Russia didn't expect: the ability to strike with almost surgical accuracy. These 3 tools together create a dangerous combination, because they don't just add power, they multiply it. They allow Ukraine to reach deeper into Russian territory, hit supply centers, damage fuel depots, and even threaten command headquarters that Russia thought were safely out of reach. They allow Ukraine to break through trench lines, destroy drone swarms, and disrupt communications at moments when Russia depends on coordination the most. And that is exactly why Moscow reacted so strongly. Within a few hours, Russian state channels opened with a chilling message. Officials declared that the United States had crossed a red line, one they had warned about many times before. They claimed that the introduction of these new systems amounted to direct U.S. involvement in the conflict. They warned that Russia would respond asymmetrically, a word that in Russian military language can mean anything from cyber attacks on Western cities, to sabotage operations, to long-range missile strikes. They said decision-making centers are now potential targets, an expression that made NATO extremely nervous, because decision centers could refer to Kyiv, but could just as easily refer to places far outside Ukraine. The seriousness of Russia's tone did not go unnoticed. Intelligence agencies across Europe upgraded their alert levels. NATO commanders began internal assessments of what Russia's response could look like. Washington began reinforcing certain bases in Eastern Europe, not in public view, but quietly, through the movement of engineers, communication teams, and early warning assets. The world began bracing for what might happen next. The reason Russia is so alarmed becomes clearer when we look at the geography. Many of Russia's most important military infrastructure points, fuel hubs, ammo storage, rail lines, are deep in territories they believe Ukraine could never reach. The Silent Hawk changes that. Suddenly, the depth of Russia's rear is no longer safe. The Spectre jammer threatens Russia's drone dominance, a dominance they've been using as their primary tool for reconnaissance and precision strikes. and the smart artillery rounds threaten fortified positions that Russian soldiers spent months building. Early battlefield reports confirm the shift. Ukrainian units conducted a series of deep strikes with unusual accuracy. Russian communication channels in certain zones went silent for hours. Satellite images show Russian command posts relocating. Supply movements slowed in multiple directions. Something had clearly changed, and Russia knew it, yet NATO, while outwardly supportive, is extremely cautious behind the scenes. They fear that Russia may choose to escalate in ways that test NATO's patience or its boundaries. They fear a miscalculation, a misunderstanding, or an accidental strike that pulls them directly into the conflict. And yet, they also know Ukraine cannot defend itself without continued support. This delicate balance is what makes this moment so unstable. Washington sent these weapons for three major reasons: to slow down Russia's recent territorial gains, to counter the overwhelming drone advantage Russia had established, and to send a message not only to Russia, but to the entire world that the United States still leads technologically, strategically, and militarily. But every powerful move comes with risk, and escalation is now the biggest fear. If Russia conducts a direct strike on NATO territory or a U.S. military asset, NATO will be forced to respond, and the chain reaction after that is something every world leader wants to avoid. But wars evolve unpredictably. A single mistake can rewrite history. Inside Ukraine, morale has surged. Soldiers feel empowered. Commanders feel more confident. Civilians feel a rare moment of hope. For the first time in months, Ukraine has tools that genuinely change the dynamic. Meanwhile, Russia's own rhetoric has gone from warning to anger to something colder and more calculated. Their military analysts understand that if Ukraine uses these systems smartly, Russia's advantage in drones, artillery coverage, and fortified positions could weaken significantly. That is why their next move is unpredictable. Russia understands that allowing these weapons to operate freely will slowly weaken the foundation of its long-term strategy. For months, the Russian military relied on two main pillars: overwhelming drone surveillance and massive artillery pressure. But these new American systems directly target those pillars. The Silent Hawk challenges the airspace, the Spectre disrupts communication, and the smart artillery rounds threaten the defensive lines Russia built with months of effort. Moscow cannot simply ignore this shift. They must respond, but how they respond is what makes the world nervous. In Moscow's military councils, discussions have already begun about possible retaliations. Analysts there believe Russia could attempt to destroy these new systems inside Ukraine before they spread across multiple front lines. That means more aggressive drone hunts, precision missile strikes on suspected depot locations, and attempts to intercept any new shipments crossing the border. But even that comes with risk, because striking American-linked assets too directly might send a different message to Washington, one that could trigger a cycle neither side wants. Another response Russia might pursue is cyber-based. Over the past decade, Russia has built a powerful cyber army, one capable of shutting down power grids, hacking communication lines, and disrupting transportation networks. If Russia chooses an asymmetric response, as their officials warned, it may not be on the battlefield at all. It could be in European cities, banking systems, or even aviation networks. This form of retaliation gives Russia the advantage of pressure without leaving fingerprints. But the most concerning option is escalation inside Ukraine itself. Russia has the capability to conduct deep strikes on infrastructure, far from the frontline power stations, rail networks, bridges, and government sites. If they feel cornered, they might unleash a new wave of long-range missile attacks to punish Ukraine for accepting the new U.S. systems. Such actions would be devastating for civilians and could send the conflict spiraling into a darker chapter. The United States, fully aware of the risks, has already started preparing countermeasures behind the scenes. Additional surveillance aircraft have been deployed near NATO borders. Cyber defense teams have been activated in silence. Extra Patriot and NASAMS batteries are being checked and quietly positioned. These steps are not announced publicly, but they are happening because Washington knows this moment is fragile. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces are quickly adapting to the new technology. Soldiers are being trained to operate the Silent Hawk with real-time guidance from foreign specialists. Artillery units are receiving instructions on how to use smart rounds efficiently and avoid wasting them. Communication officers are learning how to integrate the Spectre jammer without interfering with their own systems. There is a sense of urgency because Ukraine knows that once Russia figures out how these tools are being used, countermeasures will follow. Ukraine must use this window wisely, but behind the battlefield, another war is unfolding, a psychological one. Russia wants Ukrainian civilians to feel fear. They want European populations to feel fatigue. They want the United States to feel pressure. On the other hand, Ukraine wants hope to spread. They want to show that with the right support, they can push back. And the United States wants to maintain global confidence in its leadership. Every announcement, every warning, and every strike is part of this psychological chess game. Inside Ukraine, people speak with more determination now. Soldiers on the front lines describe how the new weapons give them a sense of control. They had not felt for months. Commanders who were worried about running out of options now believe they can slow down or even stop Russian advances. Civilians in major cities, though exhausted from constant threats, feel a small but important shift. For them, this is not just about technology, it's about survival. But across Europe, the reaction is more complicated. Countries like Poland, the Baltic states, and the UK strongly support Ukraine and welcome the new US systems. They believe this is the only way to keep Russia contained. But nations like Germany, France, and Italy feel nervous about escalating tensions. They worry that Russia might retaliate in ways that affect their energy supplies, public infrastructure, or national security. Many European leaders privately fear that crossing Russia's red lines could bring unpredictable consequences, even though publicly they stand with Ukraine. China, on the other hand, watches quietly. Beijing studies every move made by Washington and Moscow because it knows these lessons will shape future conflicts in the Pacific. Middle Eastern countries worry about global instability because rising tensions often disrupt energy markets, causing ripple effects in their economies. And countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America observe all this with caution, knowing that any global escalation affects trade, food supply, and international stability. As all this happens, one thing becomes clear: the next 60 days will be critical. Ukraine will begin fully integrating the new weapons. Russia will determine its response. NATO will evaluate its readiness. And the world will watch nervously, hoping that the situation does not spiral out of control. This is the most delicate phase of the war yet. One wrong decision, one misinterpreted action, one accidental strike could start a chain reaction. And when global powers are involved, the consequences can spread far beyond the battlefield. Yet despite the danger, there is a growing realization that this conflict is entering a new phase, one where advanced technology, strategic communication, and global alliances matter more than ever. Traditional warfare is slowly being replaced by a complex blend of drones, electronic warfare, cyber tools, and precision weapons. This shift means smaller forces can stand against larger armies if they have the right tools. And that is exactly what the Silent Hawk, the Spectre Jammer, and the Smart Artillery rounds represent: a modern counterweight to overwhelming force. Russia knows this. The United States knows this. Ukraine knows this. And that is why each side is now recalculating its next move. But as powerful as this technology is, the real danger lies in the uncertainty it creates. Because when one side gains a new advantage, the other side seeks a new method to neutralize it. When one line is crossed, the other side considers crossing one of its own. And when the battlefield evolves faster than diplomacy, the world becomes a quieter, colder, more unpredictable place. The United States has taken a bold step by delivering these weapons. Ukraine has gained a chance to stabilize the front. And Russia has issued a warning that echoes through every corridor of power on the planet. The war is no longer just about territory, it is about global influence, strategic dominance, and the future shape of international order. The United States and Russia now stand closer to confrontation than at any point in recent years. Ukraine stands at the center of a conflict that could reshape Europe. And the entire world is watching, waiting, and hoping that the decisions made in these tense nights will not ignite something far bigger. The story is not ending. It is only beginning. And the world is holding its breath.